Graham.
Yes.
I need your help, bud.
Go for it.
Like bad. We had a bad year.
Oh.
You know, it wasn't good.
Oh,
and you've been doing this longer than me just because you're older than me and better at it than me. So my question for you is, in the Midwest, North Dakota, South Dakota, Wisconsin, Minnesota, we all technically had like a rough year.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say most people, unless I'm just bad. What is your advice for warm weather? Nothing really going on in your area. Like, how are you able to kill birds? Because I am genuinely curious. It's not even for the podcast. Like, it's for me.
Well, you have to remember, you know, because I said it earlier. Like, we do this every day because we have to, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you have to go out there and hunt every single day, you are going to get, you know, on occasion, sometimes you'll just get lucky. But in a year like this, where you, for example, where you're not getting paid to do it and you're getting out and trying to get out at any, you know, sliver of time that you might have, you might have an afternoon here and a morning there and, you know, a weekend here, that type of thing. So if the weather isn't right on those particular times and the birds are doing their stupid warm weather shit, then you're going to sit there and you're not going to see anything. Well, when you're in the field every single day and you have to hunt every single day, eventually those birds break that pattern. So you have the opportunity to be there more often for when they are feeding. Because at some point, those birds that didn't come back, they were in this field because that's how you were able to scout them. So we get the luxury of having to be, you know, we're in the field every day for those days that they come back. So that's just a big advantage because we're just in the field. The more often that you're in the field, the more success that you are going to have.
Of course. So let me rephrase this a little bit.
Yep.
So like, we didn't have any cold weather. So like we were saying on the main podcast,
Yep.
Birds are more scattered.
Yeah.
How are you finding those scattered birds? Are you literally just putting on the miles as much as you can?
Yes.
Or are you finding a common roost point? Because I feel like we didn't have a common roost point this year.
Yeah.
They're just literally all over the place.
I mean, those birds are going to be somewhere. So that's for us. It is just, you know, we just have so many trucks on the road driving. Like Mike Peters, I mean, I don't even want to put a number on how many miles that guy drives every day. That guy is maniacal with his driving. I mean, he is just drives and drives and drives and drives and drives. And you eventually go to areas that you haven't, you know, been in a while, or you maybe have forgotten about, or it's a roost that you hunted a couple of years ago and it pops back into your head. And that's probably, I guess, to your point of what you're asking, like, how do you get through something like that? Is Mike's advice to our guides is that, you know, you can't just keep driving the same route every day and expect something to appear, right? You have to do something, you know, you have to do something different today than you did yesterday. So if you go to this normal spot, you normally go to the right every time you get there, go to the left. I mean, little stuff like that, we still find. We've been doing this for, I think this is 16 years. We still find kind of groups of birds that we have never hunted, that are in our local area that we didn't know about, were normally there and hadn't hunted them before, just because somebody just got off the beaten path a little bit and took a little bit different direction than they normally do, went somewhere where they normally don't go, and then all of a sudden they found this new pot of birds that we had never hunted before.
Do you find that with those birds that it's just that year and that instance is the reason that they're there, or do you then find that year over year those birds are where you find them when you didn't think they were there?
I would say it's typically going to be year over year, but then weather dependent. Like, for example, I mean, I wish I could be more specific on the podcast, but I don't want all there totally showing up, you know, in my back seat. But we had, this place, and we call it the elk farm because it was an elk farm with a pasture, and it was not that far from our lodge, and we, didn't know about it. And one of my guys and this was a while ago. So
what's not that far, by the way?
Under 10 miles.
Okay.
Yep. And, but it's in an area that is not normally, you know, we're normally focused on like Big Stone and Lac Parle. I can say that on the podcast because they're well known. So we're normally focused on those two areas because those are, you know, where the majority of the birds are going to end up.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, one of my guides found the elk farm. And we went out there and we got permission, and we went out there next day and we just beat the shit out of them. You know, it was like, a 9-man limit in, 40 minutes, one of those deals, like almost my first perfect hunt ever. Like, I don't know if you guys ever thought about like your perfect hunt, what that would look like, the most perfect hunt you've ever been on. This is my most perfect hunt that I've ever been on. And we shot them that day. And 2 days later, they were in a different one of this farmer's wheat fields. And then we hunted them there. And then 2 days later, they were back on the one that we had hunted. So we hunted them again. So, and we did that for 3 years and it was awesome. It was one of our best roosts. Well, then we got dry because we had that drought and now there hasn't been water in it for 3 years.
And they're not there.
So the elk farm birds are no longer a thing.
Sure.
Until it's going to be a wet year again, then I guarantee you they'll be right back in there.
So it's just finding new areas.
Just finding new areas. And, on dry years like that, so if that was the main pot of birds that we hunted all the time, the last 3 years, you would think that there wasn't a goose to be shot out there because all those birds are gone. Now they ended up somewhere. Now, did they end up in, a different roost that we're already hunting, or there's something else out there that we haven't found? Could be any of those things. But you've always got to be trying to, if you've got your 1 or 2 spots that you're always scouting, there's just too much variability now with weather patterns and how birds migrate. Like, you have to be diverse. Like, you have to be able to go and scout and find birds in a multitude of areas, because
you have to be able to drive an hour to go scout.
Yes, pretty much.
That's so tough.
Yeah.
It's so tough, like in the metro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know
you have to do it.
Sometimes what a lot of guys do is they'll just go on their phone and search maxed out guides, and then they come out with us. They don't have to do any of that. And then we just put out the decoys for them, and they show up with a gun,
kids, bro.
license ammo.
I got kids, bro.
Yeah.
I got kids, bro. Yeah. Shit expensive.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. No, this year really hurt my soul, because normally you can go out a couple times a year and hit a cattail slough where it's like, okay, there's 40 ducks there, and then like 120 show up.
Yeah.
And it's a good morning.
Yeah.
Especially for like 1 to 2 guys.
Yep.
This year, no pattern. Birds were here. They normally go over there.
Yeah.
Go hunt that spot the next morning. None of them show up. It's like, ooh, that hurts.
And it also hurts that you did not spend your entire summer thinking about how bad this fall was going to be. You envisioned probably
I thought it was going to be good, dude.
The greatest fall that, and that's what everybody does. We're always like this, man, oh my God, this fall, we're going to go here and we're going to do this, and we're just going to beat the hell out of them. We got this new landowner. It's going to be great.
Talking about the hatch being up 80%, buddy.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and like we've gotten so much permission in the last 10 years around this area. It's a couple thousand acres.
Yep.
And so I'm thinking, okay, if it's not hidden in this area, I'll go to this area. If it's not hidden in that area, I'll go to this area.
Yep.
If not that, then I'll go to the 4th area. It's like 4 quadrants of the metro. None of them.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, there's just not birds around, Instead of going to a whole new area to look, I'm focusing on the ground that I have, which is a lot. And usually one of the quadrants has something.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you're saying I should have just sucked it up and gone to a completely different area.
Well, if it continually the spots that you were going to over, I mean, I get it because there's comfort there, and you're just every time you go there, you're just shocked.
It's easy.
Like, this is going to be the day I'm going to go there and I'm going to find them in quadrant A, right? And they're not there. It's like, oh, okay, well, they must be in B then. Oh, they're not there either. They're not there in C. So you kind of do that,
but
over
then
and
it's
over
too
and over.
late.
Correct.
But then
that's the hard part, because every week you're like, okay, let's start the week again.
Yeah.
This can't be possible every week.
Yep.
I'll check quadrant A. And then, like Joey's saying, by the time you're on quadrant D, there's nothing there, and it's Friday night.
Yep.
Well,
and you're like, oh.
And what's interesting, I was telling Cal about it. A buddy of mine bought from the same litter that I did, and we ran into each other in North Dakota, met each other, stayed in contact ever since. And then a year and a half ago, we both bought brother and sister dogs. And he hit me up. He's like, hey, there's a couple thousand divers on this lake. You should come and hunt. And I'm like, how? How are there divers there? There's never divers there.
Yeah.
And it was like an hour and 15 for me. So worth it.
Yeah.
It was incredible. I'm like, damn, I'm just not going to the right areas.
Yeah.
But then it was so late in the season, and I had already made other plans. And so I'm like, I don't have time to go down there and scout and mess with other people's areas.
Yeah.
And plus I don't want to, oh, you invited me on this hunt? Thanks, man. I'm going to go hunt the lake next door by myself tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to do that either.
Yep. Yeah.
So it's kind of like,
well, and sometimes weird, just weird shit happens. I mean, was it 4 years ago, end of October, we had 100,000 ducks on Lac Parle at the end of October.
damn.
this year we probably would be lucky to had 300, you know, and that wasn't a crazy weather year. It's just like all of a sudden they were there. And I was talking to one of the biologists out there. I said, do you remember that year? He's like, yeah, that was wild. I said, why do you think that was? He's like, I have honestly no idea. But for some reason that year, and we just were loaded. I mean, we shot the hell out of mallards starting at the end of October, and that normally doesn't happen on Lac. That's normally more of a Big Stone thing that time of year.
Let me pose another question if I can.
You cannot.
Okay, then never mind. So Carter, go ahead and I was just gonna say, like, let's look at it from a different perspective of it though. If you're hunting and you have birds, let's say you're finding birds, but they're just not cooperating in any way.
Yeah.
Is there any advice you'd give that you start going through in terms of a checklist of like, we're gonna change this, we're gonna change the hide, we're gonna change the decoys, we're gonna.
Well, and that's what I was going to ask. So does that mean that you're out there hunting and you're in the spot where the birds want to be and they don't want anything to do with it? Like that type of scenario?
Yeah, because I mean, obviously there's like different, I think, things that do happen, but either birds completely switch where they're going out of nowhere, or let's say you're getting lunch lined, you know, or birds are being really finicky. You'll get those days where mallards are, 40 yards, 60 yards, and then they'll spin and they'll look at you 4 or 5 times, and maybe they were there yesterday, and then they'll peace out and they'll land, a mile down the road. Yeah. Like in those situations, is there anything you change?
What's your go-to change?
Yeah, that's what I mean, because I know decoys. It's variable. Okay.
More decoys?
Yeah. I mean, it's, I know there's arguments can be made back and forth one way or the other, but especially if it's more, and it's probably more field hunting than with its ducks. I would say if I was hunting ducks on water, and depending on the size of the spread, I would be more inclined to go with less decoys and less spinners. If I'm in the field, then I am probably just going to try and blow them out of the water.
Yeah.
And just, put as
comfort.
Just put as big of a spread out there as we can, and just try and hopefully overwhelm them with numbers and get them to do it that way. But I do think there's two different I think it's a different thought process for fields and there's different thought processes for water. But I always feel like we're a little bit of a disadvantage when we're on water, because that's where they live and we don't. And when we're in a field, that's where we live and they don't. So we have more of an advantage in the field and they have more of an advantage in the water.
So like they're able to pick you out better on water?
Correct. And they just are able to, they're just a little like mallards. Mallards, if you're hunting water and if you are not on the spot, and it doesn't matter where they sat yesterday, if the wind switched a little bit, if you are not on that spot where those ducks want to be, and if they want to be 75 yards down from you, that is where they are going.
Yeah. I can feel the angst as you say.
Yes.
So much angst, and it's so true.
Yeah.
It's disheveling.
Well, it's like what you said earlier, where you were like, I asked the clients when they leave to turn around and look back at us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But when you're on water, you just that's just what it is. Like that is their space. That's where they live. That's where they spend the majority of their life. And they know that way better than we do. Yeah. And it's just a different deal when we're in a,
they spend more time on the water. So they really understand that the field, their mind is on one thing, food. And so they're not really paying attention to a whole lot more. Correct. That makes, you have really
so much sense. Yeah.
Changed my mindset on that. What I've to spin on that is I feel like ducks know their own species, or birds know their own species. So if you're hunting geese and you're putting out a bunch of goose decoys, they know what a real goose looks like.
Yeah.
They know what's realistic. Yeah. And so they see something, they're gone. Yeah. Same thing with ducks. They know what their own species looks like. And so what's the best thing to duck hunt with? Goose decoys and spinners. Yeah. Especially on water too. Yeah. If you have ducks here, geese here, how many times have you seen a flock of mallards dump into the goose decoys and not in the duck decoys? Yep. It's quite a bit. Yep. To the point where you're like, maybe you just don't know that that's fake. Yeah. But you know what you are is fake.
Right. Or something was off. Yeah. They can just tell something's a little bit off. Yep.
So
they're smart.
Well, thank you for all your insight and your knowledge, because hopefully I can use that to be better next year.
Have a better year.
Joe, you're great either way.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome, buddy.
I really appreciate it.
All right, well, let's get to the platinum package then.
Sounds great. Let's go. I'm a little dehydrated still, but
it's perfect. It's fine. All right.
Cal's
Thanks
got
for coming,
pineapple.
Graham. Appreciate it.